All right, guys, welcome back. It's Wolfie's World. I'm your host, Brian. Really been enjoying the podcast lately. Just bringing on, a bunch of guests that are contributing amazing conversations to the community. And thought, why not follow up my biggest episode to date with Max Jolliffe with another character within the running space that's got a huge following, big platform, big community builder. Just as big as Max, but just in a different a way of interacting with running. And so Herm, we kind of met, serendipitously at Desert Peak 50K and started following you after that. And yeah, just really appreciate what you're doing. I think it's fascinating. I think the world that I come from could learn a lot from you guys as well. And so, yeah, welcome to the podcast, man. I'm excited for this conversation.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, we actually should not have met at Desert Peak. If you hadn't made a really long off-course little extra, 3 miles to your day, then we would have never crossed paths because you would have been so far ahead of me. But what a great about mile and a half we got to share together. It was like probably the only runnable part of that course for like the first 20 miles. It was very humbling to say the least.
Yeah, definitely serendipitous. You're right, because the wrong turn, put me in a position where I was working my way, back through almost the entire pack. So yeah, but it was amazing. Like you just had this immediate like energy that I latched onto because quite honestly, like I was 3.5 miles in the wrong direction. So I knew it was going to be 7 miles total by the time I rerouted back. And so I was in kind of a negative headspace. But dude, like your energy, I didn't know who you were or know of your platform, but like, yeah, you were as real as you present yourself to be. Like you were just the spirit that I was like connecting with, and like I was going to get myself back on course. And I thank you for that mile and a half. It was super meaningful.
Hell yeah. Thanks, man. I always try to be, I've never, been one to be like, let me do things so much differently online than I ever do in real life.
Right.
I did that. So we were talking before we got on. I used to host a podcast, a lacrosse podcast. I worked in the lacrosse industry and I wasn't myself. I'm not a lacrosse guy. Like I just happened upon it and knew that I could like make my entry into media that way. So I was like, all right, I will dive headfirst into this. But at the same time, like, dude, it wasn't my scene. It couldn't be further from my scene. So I was like going to these lacrosse events and I'm like, dude, this isn't me. Like this couldn't be further from the person they're going to meet. So then I took a hiatus from social media altogether. I deleted all the platforms. I didn't do any podcasts. I did nothing. And so when I got back on, I'm like, man, this is going to be 100% authentic me. I might piss some people off from time to time, but like, who the hell cares? Like, we're just going to push forward and have some fun with this. And I hope that anytime someone does meet me out in the wild, like, it is just like, yeah, oh, this is the same dude.
Yeah, no, completely vouch for that. And so before we get too far ahead, though, I know there's going to be quite a few of my listeners that are probably unfamiliar to yourself. So, I mean, go as deep as you want or as shallow as you want. But yeah, I mean, like, who's Herm? Like, what was it like, growing up? And like, what is your introduction to running? Like, how do you identify yourself as a runner?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a Scorpio.
There you go.
I grew up playing sports. So for me, it was hockey and baseball my whole life. I'm a jock at heart, unfortunately. So I came up through the kind of ranks of like running is this really like mean and aggressive thing that you only do when you're being punished. And so I hated it with a passion for most of my life. I failed my college. I played baseball in college. I failed our college fitness test my freshman year 8 times in a row because I couldn't run a mile and a half in 9.5 minutes. And to be honest, I probably still couldn't do that right now. I probably could, but like it would be like really pushing it. And so running was always this thing that I avoided like the plague, man. I hated it so much. And then during the pandemic, I got really fat. Like I was up to like 310 pounds for a little bit there. I was golfing every day and living a very unhealthy lifestyle. I was smoking cigs. I was drinking beers. I was doing all the things that you shouldn't be doing to your body. Meanwhile, my partner Alexis, she's training for the New York City Marathon, and I'm like literally just such an asshole to her the whole time. Like I am literally like, you are crazy, you're gonna die doing this. This is stupid. Why are you spending like 4 hours on a Saturday morning going for a run when you could be hanging with me? And then we get to her running the New York City Marathon. I go that day and I'm like, oh, I get it. I'm inspired. Picked up the running shoes the next day. and just never looked back. Cause like you see so many people, and this is what I love so much about the ultra space. I love the marathon space too, but the ultra space in particular is watching people complete their dreams, complete things that they never thought in their entire life they'd ever be able to accomplish. And watching people do that day in 2022 was just like, oh my God, this is so rad. I have to be a part of this. So I was like, I told my buddy there that next day or at the marathon, I was like, I'm going to do this race next year, and laughed in my face. He's like, absolutely not. You're not doing that. And lo and behold, ran the New York City Marathon the next year. And I knew from a very early stage, and this is where your following might resonate with me, is the second week I got into running, I dive head in. I'm a big ADHD person. So like if I attach to something, I go all in. And so I found Eric Sensman's Cocodona video, and I'm like, oh, dude, this
A long way
marathon I'm
home.
training for is
Yeah.
going to be a really sick opportunity to like get into running, but this is where I want to end up. This is what I want to end up doing. So, but I also realized at a very early stage, like this is going to be a very long process, like 10 years, decade down the line before I even attempt to do something like this. So we're going to have fun. We're going to take our time with it and kind of build up into that point. So I knew when I crossed that New York City finish line that I'm like, oh, dude, we can go so much further than this. Like, yeah, that hurt, but like we can do so much more just staying upright. And so I then went and ran my first ultra, like I guess 4 weeks later, and did it was a 50K, pretty flat 50K. And ever since then, I've ran a bunch of marathons. I enjoy marathons; they're fine. But I love ultra running. Like I just love being on trails, and I love hurting, and I love the just kind of grind of a long day out on the trail. So it's been the thing that appeases me the most. The unfortunate part about living in Boston though is we live in a very flat, few trail system area. So I don't have the option to go and run trails as frequently as I would like. So it's a weird kind of way to train, but like I call it urban trail running sometimes. So like I'll run on the dirt path that's like right next to the sidewalk. And then because we're so flat, we have like 2 hills out in Newton that if you go 10 miles up and down it for, however long, you might get 3,000 feet of vert. So like that's what you have to do. And so training for trails and ultras overall, I think that added element of like having to figure it out makes it so much more fun. So like, yes, it'd be sick to train trail, like just run trails every single day and climb thousands of feet every single day. But I think that the element of like being creative with it makes it that much more enjoyable. So yeah, that's kind of how I've gone to this point. And now I'm just like, I think that running is the best part of every day. And I can't imagine not being in this kind of running, too many miles headspace.
Right. No, I appreciate that, man. You gave me a lot of places that I wanted to launch off from, but I think the first one that I'll pull at is like, yeah, we have a lot of similarities there. It's like I was a baseball guy, that was kind of like my childhood upbringing. My dad was my coach, played all through high school, identified, through everything as being a baseball player. I think where we'll differ is like I've got the Boston shirt on, but I was a Yankee guy. So if the podcast needs to end now, I think it.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
I'm out of here.
I'm no longer a big fan of baseball, but yeah. So do you think it was that kind of? Do you think it was just something inside of you early on in sports that instilled that mindset of like you finished your first marathon and you thought you could go further? Like I think that's a very like uncommon response, especially somebody that was kind of in the process of becoming fit. Like I don't think you had, self-realized, your full, fitness, and you were on that journey, and yet you still were like, no, I need 4 weeks later to sign up for an ultra. Like, yeah, where did that mindset do you think come from?
That is 100% just me being like a greedy son of a bitch. That's just me wanting more. I do think that comes from being like raised an athlete. Like it's the reason I can't go play like men's league baseball or men's league hockey anymore. Because if I'm not the best person out on the course or on the field or whatever, I just don't want to be out there. Like I become way far too competitive with it. And so running, the beautiful part about it is that I get to only be competitive with myself. So I can only push one person to be better at this sport, and that's me. If I was out on a field and I was an asshole to a bunch of adults, that would be terrible. Like I would be so bad if I was like chirping people on the rink because, they're not working hard enough at midnight on a Wednesday.
Right.
So in running, like I can only take it out on myself and I can only hold myself accountable. So I think that that's what kind of drives that like yearning for going further or doing the next thing. And I think that part of it too is just understanding that the ultimate goal is to go further, like whatever that looks like. So when I think about doing something like Cocodona, I'm like, well, we just did 26.2, but that would only be like a few hours of this multi-day event. So we really need to learn how to stay upright and keep moving. And so like also I've learned that like I can go forever. I love staying upright. I just will never do it fast. I'm not a fast person by any means. So the taking the breaks, hitting aid stations, just making sure that I'm putting one foot in front of the other always appealed to me so much about the ultra thing. And then at the same time, I think the beauty in this weird kind of influencer, like whatever the space is I live where I have a following, is that I post my times on the internet. It's very public for people to see. And there's something very intimidating about what looks good as a marathon time. Whereas as soon as you get on the trail and you run an ultra, nobody could give a shit about how fast you did it. It's just a matter of they finished and they completed, 50 miles. Like that's insane to people. People will never comprehend completing that distance. So they don't care at all about how fast you did it. Whereas a marathon, they're like, oh, didn't break 4 this time. What a slowpoke, what a loser. So it's like, I think that just like internally, and probably nobody gives a shit, but this is just me projecting out onto the world with my insecurities, that people are at home judging the speed at which I'm running these marathons.
Right. Yeah, I think that's always kind of been the critique, I guess, of the marathon space or road running in general, is that it's PB or failure, and that's kind of, I've never ran a road marathon. When I got back into running, I went straight into the trails and wanting to run an ultra for that very reason of just like, I ran cross country in high school and I didn't want to be chasing splits. And like I said, like, yeah, invest so much into a training, block and then feel like I didn't get anything out of it because I didn't run a certain time. Right. And so, trail running is just beautiful for that. But yeah, running makes like no sense. And it's beautiful for so many reasons because like you go to so many major marathons and, there's tens of thousands of people participating and there's hundreds of thousands that are there spectating and nobody's there for the professionals. You know what I mean? It's like going to, it's like going to a baseball game and like nobody's actually there to see the baseball players. They're just there to support, the dads and the sons. It's like, it makes no sense. Talk about that, like, because that's something maybe I'm starting to get a little curious about and wanting to engage with marathoning is like the energy around the marathon. And like you do a lot of activations around these events and, community shows up and like nobody's interested in the elite runners. They're there wanting to meet, men and women that they've, seen online or run groups that they're familiar with. Like, yeah, just talk about how that is kind of similar to trail community.
It's insane to me. Why am I getting paid more to like host an event than like a pro is getting paid to win the race? That's insane. That's crazy. And as someone who came from like professional ball sports, that is like, these are our idols. These are the people that we worship. These are the people that we spend all this money to go watch. I do think that there's a shift in kind of who and what is being talked about at marathons. I do think that pros are becoming more popular, and I think it's because of social media. A lot of pros are now starting YouTube channels, like Clayton Young, great YouTube channel. You can watch his training block from afar, and you can kind of, I don't want to say relate to it because you'll never be able to relate to his paces probably, but you can relate to it in the sense that he gets sore. He has to work hard. He runs on tired legs. So I do think that it's shifting a little bit, but you're so right. I think that in this day and age, it does, and it's not even just in running. I do think that there's times where people show up to other sports just to try and find an influencer in the crowd because there's this weird parasocial relationship. I shouldn't say weird because I think that they should be studied, but there's this parasocial relationship people have with the humans that they see online and they feel as though they can relate to them. So like for me, A lot of big dudes who run with their shirts off, also big women and big non-binary runners. Like people who just feel like they do not fit the generic mold of a runner, but are something that is unique to this space. And so I think that because they can't run the paces that Clayton Young runs, they can't run the paces that Max Jolliffe runs. They are like, okay, well, this guy's out here running a little slow. I'm gonna like follow his journey and maybe get something out of that. And I think there is a beauty in that. I do think that sometimes it's a little bit like I think we're focusing on the wrong people. Um, I very much like stumbled upon this fandom that I have and like the people that take care of me and follow my content. And I love it and I appreciate it every single day. But like, I never did that on purpose. Well, meanwhile, the pros, they very purposely are trying to be the fastest in the world. They're very purposefully trying to get on the podium. So I'm like, okay, yes, come out to my event, but like, let's then, like you said, let's talk about the pros. Let's talk about the elite field in this race. I think that the beautiful thing in kind of the crossover between trail and road running. So like we're seeing a little bit in road running, but I do think the trail space is like everybody knows the pros because ultra running right now is so like you can go shake hands with the pro right before they take off at the starting line. You know, you can't do that at a major marathon, but at an ultra, everybody's in the same crowd. There's only one start, and like you might be 5 feet behind. At JFK 50, I accidentally got started in the front of the crowd, so I'm up there with like a handful of pros. I've got like Hans Troyer, 4 people in front of me, and I'm like this should not be this way, but it's because of that accessibility to them that you're like, okay, this is really cool. Met the person, really nice in real life, and I can connect with them. And then you can talk to your friends about the kind of cool interaction you had with an ultra pro. So I think that that's the big difference. And I do worry that one day that's going to change because our sport is growing and it we'll probably start to see like just elite fields that stay very separate from kind of everyone else in the pack. But until that day comes, they're very accessible and it's very fun to meet pros because at the end of the day, they are like superheroes to me, right? Like the
Right.
idea of running a sub 24-hour 100-mile race is like, or I mean, even sub like people running Western states like 13 hours. Like that is something I will never fathom. That is, you are a literal superhero in front of my eyes. So I can relate and I just want to say hi and I would love to just like meet you as a human. So I do think it's a big accessibility thing. And then at the same time, like the elite marathoners are just like they're on another pedestal that, you know, I think we need to kind of learn more about each and every runner and they're doing that through their social channels.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Elliot Kipchoge is like, obviously the GOAT and like the example for all elite marathoners to follow as far as building a profile beyond just the marathon times. Like I've long said that he didn't pop off as like a global icon because he was running fast. It was because he was sharing those stories. He had Nike intentionally put that slogan around no human is limited, right? And he's talking about still sweeping the huts, where he trains with his teammates. Just a really endearing human story that we all connected to, and we wanted to lift up this guy because we celebrated the message that he was living. And so when he got out on the line to perform, everybody was like, "Where is he? I want to see how he's doing." But like nobody else had a story behind them, on these start lines. It was just him. And so, yeah, I think there's an opportunity for guys like you to be, an introduction to the mainstream runner who's not a fan of running or the elite runners, but really passionate about running. I think it would be unique to see and hear how you would, introduce and have a conversation with an elite runner to the audience that shows up to your group run. And then I think that would be way more valuable to the brands that sponsor them, the elite runner themselves, and the community to kind of have more cohesion of like, these elite runners are accessible. They do have, lives that are relatable to us in some capacity, but you get kind of the elite broadcaster and all they do is ask kind of the same questions that's talking about the minutia of training to run maybe 3 seconds faster than they did last year.
Right. No, exactly. I do think that the bridge is much smaller than people think. Like right now,
Right.
like someone getting into running feels like they're this far away from, you know, whoever. But really, it's only this far. You're very relatable. At the end of the day, you're still putting on your shoes every morning, going for a run, and they most likely also have to come home, uh, take a shower, say hi to their partner, raise a kid potentially, do all the things that we have to do. They just, happen to get paid to do it really fast. And so I do think that there is a bridge to be gapped, or gap to be bridged, whatever the phrase is there. And I don't think we're far off from it. I think that that is one of the beauties of social media, is that I really truly believe that people are more accessible than we kind of present. And I think that once kind of brands in particular start forcing people into utilizing social media more, because it's basically free marketing for them since they're signed to a contract, we will start to see more kind of connection between the human kind of aspect of it and everything. I mean, even if this is more ultras, but like thinking about like, what was the one that they did with a couple years ago about Cocodona? It had Versteeg in it, and
The chase. Yeah.
the chase, yeah. And then like you're just watching Versteeg like skate in his backyard, and you're like, oh, I do that too. Like that's super rad. Like he's gonna be like going and running this crazy race right now, but like at the same time, we kind of come back home at the end of the day and kick it the same way. That's really cool. And I think that if we saw all like road marathoners doing that, people would be like, oh, okay, super cool. He also ate, Kraft mac and cheese last night for dinner.
Right.
Like, they're not these crazy, like, they don't have crazy chefs making every meal for them. Like, they were just feeding their kid and also ate the same thing.
Right. Yeah, I know you interact a lot with, like I said, with a lot of road runners and runners who particularly show up around marathons. And yeah, I've always wanted to bridge that gap as well. To steal a paraphrase from you, but what are some of like the questions you get asked from trail curious or ultra curious, runners in the community, and how many make that conversion? Because road running is still, dwarfing the amount of people that show up to ultra marathons. Like we in our silo sometimes think that we're a bigger community than we actually are, and then you see how many
Mhm.
people show up to a marathon race who never run a trail. How much curiosity is there that you see?
There's a lot of so much curiosity, but at the same time, it's like almost like so scary that they're like, I
Wow.
love watching what you do, but like I can't do that.
Oh,
Like,
wow. Okay.
a big thing on the East Coast, so it's a little bit different in Arizona, right? You have a slightly flat or slightly easier paths to run. You have far less sharp rocks pointing out of the ground and weird roots that'll jump out at you. And so a big part of like the scare here on the East Coast is just like breaking ankles, twisting wrists, and kind of doing everything in between, river crossings. And I'm like, but that's what makes it exciting, right? Because you have to be so much more technical about it. You're just focused and you're having a good time. And so a lot of the questions I get are pertaining to like injury. They're like,
Mm.
how did you not fall? How did you not get hurt? And I'm like, I always invite people to join me on the trail. I'm like, if you're game, we'll go out next week, next Saturday, we'll take all day long. Like I will kind of teach you what's worked really well for me. I'll teach you what could work well for you, and we'll make a day of it. And I think you'll fall in love with it at the end of the day, because being in nature is a completely different ballgame than running on the road. I mean, once you get encapsulated by some trees and you feel the dirt under your feet and you get to have walking breaks and you kind of see what goes into trail running, that is you know, all right, slippery slope. Now you're all in, and you got to just keep going with it. But I think that the second question I get asked the most is like, what kind of draws someone away from the roads, right? Because you're like, okay, I've been told my whole life I have to run fast. I have to train to run fast. Trails is complete opposite. Like really, we're just training for longevity. Like we're training to stay upright and stay healthy as long as we can during a race. So when people come to me and they're like, why, like this is so much different than what I've ever trained for. How do I make this conversion? And it's like, you kind of have to shift your mind completely to just think it's a whole different sport. You have to just understand that what you're getting into is a much different version of the thing that you already love, and it's going to be a ton of fun. You just have to give it a chance. So I been pushing people to the trails so much recently, and I've had some really good success stories. I got a couple friends that are like signing up for trail races for the first time in their life, and I do think that another thing I always do is just push people to watch YouTube videos. You watch, or even yesterday, dude, I just watched your video with the bike company.
Yeah,
Is it Avita?
cicada. Yeah,
Ikata? Uh, dude, I watched that and I'm like, I just want to go run on some trails right now. Like, you just watch someone run on trails and you're like, okay, yeah, I get it. I'm gonna go do that.
right.
Like, uh, watching running is my favorite thing to do because it makes me a better runner. It makes me think about the way in which I run. It makes me think about the way that I think about running, and it makes me kind of dream about going to different destinations to do running. So, like, you live in Arizona. That's a destination racer. I get to go run in Arizona. Like, I will fly to Arizona just to run because I love running in the desert. So like, it's such a fun kind of thing to weigh to try and like pave your own path just through watching other people do the sport.
Right. Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, I think like that's a great example to use with people is like, could you imagine going 3.5 miles or even a half a mile or a mile off course at a marathon? Like, I think
Go.
most people would probably just be like, okay, like the race is over. Like, I'll save my fitness. Like, you would just kind of DNF there at that point. A hard stop. There's no way you're going to just, finish it for the sake of finishing it. And yet, in an ultra, you just embrace it of like, all right, well, I just got, 7 extra bonus miles. This just adds to the story. And like, you then have another 14-hour day of incredible, accomplishments, highs and lows. And like, your story's not done just because you get off course. And like, that's the contrast between these two things and how wildly different they are.
The thing I always tell people too is you have to be down for the adventure. If you're
Yeah.
not down for the adventure, you're gonna have a long day.
Yeah.
Because nothing will ever go to if something goes to plan during an ultra marathon, then you're gonna have the best race of your entire life and soak it up, maybe even retire after that. Because I mean, Desert Peak, prime example, man. I was anticipating being out of there, first 50K in like 8 hours. It
Okay.
was 12 hours before I got in, dude. Like, I didn't anticipate 4 extra hours on my feet there, but hell, dude, climbing up Mount Lemon, it's no joke. And
No
then
joke.
coming down some really steep, loose rock, no joke. And so, although you thought you were going to move faster, you didn't. And then you have to be constantly trying to figure out what's the next move, what's going to be best for me, and how are we going to make it, just a little bit further each time.
Right.
So I think that the adventure part of it's what makes it so exciting to me. I'm big on just kind of getting lost in the trails. And so if you allow yourself to do that, you're going to have a good time. It might hurt. It might kind of suck at times, but what you get out of it's so much bigger.
Right. Contrast for me, because again, just being a spectator from the outside looking in at the marathon scene, like, I've followed you. I follow like Mikey Kratzer, another guy who's got, a big platform within the major marathons and run clubs and stuff. And it does look like the difference is all of the, kind of community and socializing is done outside of the race. Like, sure, I see like, like there's certain sections where you celebrate and, have some fun, but like the ultra marathon space is like, there's plenty of time and space, and the paces are sometimes you're power hiking, or most all the time you're power hiking or going slow enough that like, yeah, you kind of band up with the fellow runners of that race, and like you build relationships during that day that sometimes last for the rest of your life. And like in the marathon scene, I feel like that's maybe a difference, right? Like when you're actually running, is it a bit more difficult or just less opportunity to build that type of relationship?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think so like Mikey does this so well. Mikey's like the most personable person you'll
Yeah,
ever meet. So he will communicate with anyone on course. But if you're working your ass off, you have like 160 heart rate, which you'll never
right.
have during an ultra. You're not trying to talk to the people around you. Sure. I do think something that's really cool that comes out of marathoning is the silent communication that happens. I think that you kind of can always, if you're in a pack, you'll always understand what everyone's thinking, where kind of everyone is in your surrounding area. But it's not the same as like Desert Peak. I got hooked up with a guy climbing up Mount Lemon. We probably talked for 3 hours, and great guy, unbelievable story. And you wouldn't have that in a marathon race because, well, you don't have really 3 hours to talk to someone all the time. And also, like, I mean, you're not trying to go push your body to a limit in which you're out of breath for so long. So if you're climbing and talking, you're doing it right. If you can still have that conversation, you're keeping your heart rate in a good spot, you're doing it in a fantastic way. So yeah, I mean, that's the big difference because we don't do shakeout runs really for ultra marathons. Like, you're not seeing
No.
a 200 person, group of people running somewhere beforehand. So you have to do it on course almost. Whereas marathons, you end up showing up to the location 3 days ahead of time, doing 3 days of social events, which, funny enough, is more exhausting than actually running a marathon because that's so much socializing. And that's kind of where you get your fix for like human interaction for the weekend. Because as soon as race day comes, you're cooked.
Right. Um, you've talked about Cocodona a few times of being kind of the ultimate goal of where you'd like to progress with your journey in trail running and running in general. And yeah, I mean, that's super fascinating because that's huge. I mean, that's a big endeavor. It's a multi-day event. It clearly takes kind of this like mindset of, tackling something that's very daunting to most people. And a lot of times we associate that with kind of the Cam Hanes or the David Goggins approach, just because it's the one I think that's, most well known and shared, I think, on social medias. But I've always believed that like there are other types of mindsets that are successful or that resonate and connect, right? Like that's not for everyone, certainly not for everyone all the time. Sometimes it's best in doses. And so I think you're the perfect person to kind of get some education here for me is like what kind of what kind of like mental uh strength or like what are you a student of mentally to kind of prepare yourself for something like Cocodona?
Yeah, I mean, I think that longevity is like such an interesting concept, right? Because like how do we stay interested or stay locked into something for so long, especially if it's like a multi-day event? And I always come back to these two things, right? Um I am like my father's son. I'm a hippie at heart. So like I go back to this quote from um Mickey Hart, who was the drummer of the Grateful Dead, and he always said, if it's worth playing, it's worth playing loud. And you can apply this to anything in your life, right? If it's worth running, it's worth running to the fullest extent and pushing yourself to doing whatever it is. And then I also have this quote by Ken Kesey that I love, where I believe every man has the right to be as big as it in him to be. And so being as big as it is in me to be, I know watching people do this that I can go and I can complete 250 miles. Is it going to be hard? Yes. Is it going to be fun? Yes. Are there going to be things that I could never dream of in my entire life that are going to happen over the course of those few days? Yes. But it's not in the sense of like a gym kind of hardcore, like, oh, I need to grind harder type thing. It's more like be as big as it is as you feel it in you to be. And if you have that opportunity to go and push your own limits and do it with vigor and have fun, you're going to have a ton of success in life at doing whatever the hell you want to do. So I really hold those two things to heart. And at the end of the day, if I start training for Cocodona and realize rather quickly that I'm not having fun doing it, or I feel like I am going to hit my limit prior to there, then we pull off a little bit. And maybe, we live at a shorter distance. I still need to do my first 100-mile race. And, I thought I was going to do it this year, and then I realized I just wasn't ready for it. I think I need a couple more 50-mile races, maybe 100K. I don't know what I need to have under my belt before I don't think I'll ever feel ready, but I do think there will be a time in my life where I'm like, okay, let's lock in and let's get ready for this. And it didn't come this year. And I think that that's such a big part of this too, is like understanding your limits, pushing them to where you're at the moment, and then growing them from there. And so those are the kind of two things that push me to find those new limits. Also, just, truly being inspired by watching other people do this event that, is like absolutely insane. There's so many amazing Cocodona fish finishers who are coming in right before the final bell, and you're just like, yes, these are the people that inspire the hell out of me and are working so hard for so long, and it can't get overlooked. I do think that it's interesting that because like Cocodona has been my thing for since 2022, like when I got into running, but now it's like this huge race that now has like millions of people
Yeah,
tracking who's gonna
has a
win and like
lottery,
what's gonna
right?
end up happening at the end. I'm like, oh man, it has a lottery now, and I'm like, damn, dude, people are gonna think that this stupid influencer like just saw it in like 2026 and really wanted to get into it because I'm like. I've been into this shit, dude.
Right.
I've always wanted to do it, but yeah, it's up there. I'm gonna do it one day. I couldn't tell you what year it'll be, but it will happen.
No, I love that. Yeah. So I love that. I love that it's like it's things that are like sentimental to you. You know, you mentioned like the relationship, you know, to your dad, and then you know, music. Music's a huge influence on me as well. So I totally resonate with that. What about like when things get dark? You know, because I think that's probably also maybe a bit of a difference between road marathoning and ultra. You know, there's so much time for you to be in your own thoughts and your own mind. And like you said, I mean, Desert Peak was a daunting task. You get to the top of Lemon and you think, you know, just I told Joe this. I'm like, it's such a mind fuck because you get to a summit and you think it's downhill from here. I'm at the top. But then you slam me back down this mountain, and then I've got to go right back up another 2,500-foot climb. And yeah, it was just torturous. And so, yeah, when things get maybe challenging, you know, doubt creeps in, or even dark thoughts seep in. Like, how do you kind of purge that during the ultra?
Yeah, I think for me, it's honestly just trying to live with it.
Oh, okay.
This might not be the right advice, but like, I'm like, yeah, this really sucks right now. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it hurting for a while and, you know, living with it. And then from there, if you live with it long enough, it eventually goes away. But if it doesn't, then you got to call an audible because then your body's trying to tell you something probably. For me, it's nutrition. Anytime that I start to really get negative, and it's lasted more than 15, 20 minutes, it's like, okay, no, I definitely just haven't eaten enough recently. I definitely need to just take something in that's not, you know, a gel. I need an Uncrustable. I need a grilled cheese. I need whatever is at the next aid station. I need to eat that and enjoy it and really appreciate that food because it's going to save, you know, this kind of negative headspace. So, just living with that kind of negative headspace, that really tough situation that you're in, that's what pushes me through. And then if it lasts longer than like 15, 20 minutes, then I know I'm hungry. I just need to eat. That is
Right.
the number one telltale sign that my nutrition is off and I need to go enjoy whatever kind of food they have at the next aid station. And that might even mean taking a 15, 20-minute aid station stop where I actually sit down, I eat a burger, I drink a Mountain Dew, and then it's like a whole new day. You know, you come out of that, throw on some new music, and you're thriving. And it's the roller coasters of emotions that you feel during an ultra that also make it just so exciting because you'll hit your highest highs and your lowest lows. It's impossible to stay perfectly even keel the entire time. So when you're at the high, ride it out as long as you can. When you're at the low, ride it out for as short as you can.
Right.
And try and stay even keel, but if you can't, that is totally okay and it's not expected.
Right. That's got to be helping you too with like your marathoning experiences, like going through ultra. Because in ultra, I've always expected and anticipated, you know, things that are going to get dark, you know, doubt that's going to creep in. But like I think sometimes, you know, when I talk to my guys that are running road marathons, they don't expect anything to be challenging until like mile 20, right? Like they train
Mm.
specifically to be like it should be easy until mile 20. And so it's got to be alarming when they start sensing their body not responding like it was in training. And like in ultra marathoning, like that's never the case. Like nothing, you know, is guaranteed to be good. Like a mile into the race, you can start feeling your gut kind of turning
Dude,
and just
Desert Peak. I
yeah,
mean, I was 4 miles in before I was like, dude, this is gonna suck today.
Right. But you kind of expected and thought, okay, it comes a little bit sooner, but like it just makes you easier to handle adversity, which I've always said on the podcast too, is like one of the virtues, as ultra runners or even road marathoners that you can apply to your life outside of running. Like it just
Mhm.
makes you a better coworker, it makes you a better spouse, significant other, father, mother. Like it's just running has so many virtues that lend themselves outside of it.
Yeah, I read something online that somebody said they or like if somebody puts that they're a marathoner on their resume, they'll hire them every time because they know that they have kind of a higher set of patience, tolerance, and kind of will to put up with some pain. But I mean, I I couldn't agree more. I think that like running and especially the ultra marathon thing has made every relationship to everything I do in my life so much stronger and just it gives you such a better kind of appreciation for the finer things in life, even if that is just, a long hug at the end of a day because, you felt a lot of pain on your run that morning or, whatever it is. It's a very beautiful thing that we get to experience.
Right. Yeah, I mean, talk to me because, like you said, like you love kind of you have this passion, I think, for being a role model for people that maybe have, you know, body image challenges or whatever the appropriate way is to contextualize that. But like you said, like shirts off, like you embrace it, and I think there's a big community around your platform that resonate with that. And like, they love that they can find somebody, that looks like them, within the running space. And that's I think that's a great thing. I think we should have, as many, as much representation for everybody and all the different identities. And that's kind of why I think running, of any modality is really exploding right now because it is this landscape of self-expression. So how big of a connection, like if running wasn't like that, like, do you think you could even stay connected to it? Because it just seems like right now we're in the best era of running because of how self-expression is a huge part of everything that we do.
I think that if we couldn't do that, I would still try and figure out a way.
Okay.
It was how I played sports growing up too. I always was different in the sense that like my style in which I did something was never on. I was the person who got in trouble for cutting my baseball pants. I was the person who got in trouble for cutting my hockey jersey. Like I made shit the way that I wanted to wear it and the way that I thought looked really cool. So when I come into running and I start seeing guys who are like tatted and just different than what like where I work for Brooks, but like, when you think of Brooks, you think of like really colorful outfits and, no, dude, I've always worn like all black. I've always painted my nails. Like I've always done this weird stuff that is very against whatever the normalities of life are. And so when I got into running, I felt very uncomfortable at the run clubs where everyone was dressed in colorful sets and colorful. But then I found like one run club that's wearing all black. It's dudes with tats and they're smoking cigs before. And I'm like, these are my people. Like, this is the run club that I need to be a part of. And so I think that the self expression that's come out of that is so freaking rad because we can truly just do what we want. And I think that like, the barrier to entry to running is as low as it's ever been because I do genuinely believe that the kind of judgment of runners is going down day by day. So whether that's larger people running shirtless, whether that's people running in jean shorts, I saw that yesterday, like real jean shorts, whether that's people wearing clothes that just are not traditional running clothes. That's so cool. And people are now like, huh, I kind of dig that actually. And like people are starting their own kind of movements by just being themselves. And so I think because that barrier to entry is so low, people can just hop in, start running and people might dig a lot what you're doing. And like I think self-expression is one of the most beautiful things we have an opportunity to have in life. It's why we dress the way we do. It's why we present ourselves the way we do when we just walk down the street to go to the store. And so having the opportunity to do that through your running is like just incorporating into another aspect of your life. And that's also how you find your people. At the end of the day, like we do tend to congregate with the people in which we relate to the most. And we feel like are similar to us, are interested in the same things. They dress the same way. And because of that, I mean, that's why the running boom is happening. People really love seeing people that want to hang with them and are, going to fit in these cool groups. So I'm here for it. Self-expression. I've made a couple videos about it this summer. I'm like, dude, that is what we need more of. I mean, if it's however you want it to be, express yourself. That's like the biggest and coolest part of this whole sport.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's something worth celebrating because, yeah, I mean, I was a big time golfer, real passionate about golfing, and like you can't express yourself really through the act of golfing. Like it's a polo shirt, you can wear. There's a few brands that might be a little bit more, edgy and counterculture of golf, but like you still look like a golfer, and a stereotypical golfer, and like same with like being a fan of basketball. Like you're going to wear a jersey with some team and dude's name and number on your back. Like that's not really as self-express. It's not unique to you. It's just you self-expressing you like this team. And so running is like the only sport or hobby that I can think of where like it has this blank landscape to be like, yes, I run, but like that's not my identity. And you get to present who you are outside of the act of running, every single time you leave the door. And so I love it, man. I'll always continue to encourage people who, it's maybe not uh natural for them to be quite as intentional and self-expressive with how they dress or how they interact and things. And so yeah, if anybody ever has questions, man, let us know. I think Herm would be a great guy to reach out to with figuring out how to find comfort in expressing yourself.
Yeah. I mean, and also at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be like this crazy expensive endeavor. Like
Right.
if you can literally, if like you really dig the clothes that you already own, wear them. Like they might not be traditional running clothes, but like if you find comfort in that, dude, send it. Have fun. Like that's what I love about this. It doesn't have to be this crazy, like, yeah, we have brands like Satisfy, Bandit, uh, currently. Like they're pretty expensive things. Like you're paying, but you don't have to do that. At no point is anybody going to mandate that you have to wear these clothes, and you can still fit in just as
Right.
fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just mix and matching, maybe find a nice pair of technical running shorts because, shorts are kind of tough. Like you can't wear like, cargo canvas shorts. Like that ain't going to cut it, but you can throw on a cotton, Carhartt shirt. You can throw on a cotton, concert band shirt. Like running in a nice vintage worn in cotton t-shirt is my favorite thing to do.
Oh,
And you
it's
can
the best.
cut the sleeves off. You can crop it to a special length that you want for you, that you feel comfortable with, like, yeah, I think so many options, like I love getting into it. I geek out on the self-expression side.
Me too. And also, like, dude, you see someone running down the road wearing a band tee that you dig, immediately, like, you can talk to them, you can be like, "Oh, you also love Operation Ivy? Sick. Like, let's talk about it for a second, and I think that that's such a cool part of it. I mean, it's why I think at the end of the day, like, we are on social media and we do have those connections, but there's nothing better than a true human connection that happens so authentically because you're out there and it's because of the way in which you were expressing yourself. I couldn't agree more. But yeah, you're right. Shorts are definitely something that are like you want to dial those in. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're gonna have a tough day. I did get past my first ultra, no, second ultra. It was a 6 hour relay, just loops for 6 hours. I got passed by this guy, just blew my doors off of like 3 times that day, just wearing cargo shorts, like
Oh, there you go.
true full pockets cargo shorts. And I'm like, you know what? Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need a waist belt if you got enough
No,
capacity
yeah,
in the pocket.
exactly.
Love it. Um, I kind of wanted to wrap up here just because the last couple episodes that I've done and anytime you kind of get topical with things that are, emerging around the trail and ultra space, and I'm sure in the marathon as well, like there's just always controversy. Like right now, it's obviously the whole doping saga and everything going on there. And like, yeah, you can kind of like, you get on these social medias and you look at posts and you see like a lot of like infighting within the community. And it feels, I think, bigger, louder, and more real than it probably is in real life, And it's
Mhm.
like, I don't know, I've never shown up to an event and felt like maybe the differences that we have ever manifest themselves. Like I feel like an aid station volunteer is always going to serve me, even if they feel like, oh, I think maybe he said something or he might represent this group that I don't resonate with. And vice versa. Like I've never treated anybody different if I felt like, there was some sort of difference there. And it's like, have you ever experienced that? Like, it just seems like it's such a polarizing difference between the social media landscape and what actually happens in real life at marathon events and ultras.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's ever gonna approach me and be like, "I fucking hate you." Like, I wish they would. There's people online that do. I wish they would actually say it to my face. Then I could actually
Because you
talk
could
to
probably have
them.
a conversation and work it out.
Yeah,
Like, I just
right.
don't think it's like that real.
Um, no, I would say there are some pretty garbage human beings in our space. Like, I'm not gonna go and make a scene. It's not my place to go and, ruin other people's weekend. But like, I won't talk to them or I'll avoid them.
Okay.
And like, I think that's just being like a person who has some sort of feel. Like, sure, yeah, I disagree very strongly with some of these things, and like I've let it be known on the internet, like not directly at them, but like you can put two and two together, and
Okay.
so like let them do their thing, and then I'll just go and I'll run my race. I don't have to interact with so and so, but I do think that there's definitely more of that in the marathon space. I think people are looking to like ruffle some feathers
Mm.
in the road side of things.
More
Um,
provocateurs just being,
yeah,
douchebags for the sake of doing it.
yeah, pretty much. I mean,
Okay.
at the end of the day, there's going to be assholes with anything you do, right? It doesn't matter where you are, who you are, when it's happening. There's always going to be people that like to stir the pot. I'm not going to be that person traditionally, but like it definitely does happen. And then they get online and they're extra vocal about it there. That's where, we start seeing it the most. And yeah, it's an interesting thing to like bring up and talk about, but like I do think the weird doping thing. People are I got a bunch of DMs. I also just learned that there's like this separate DM request button. So I was going through this. I'm like, holy shit, get a lot of these, and people are like, why haven't you commented on the doping campaigns? Whatever the other guy's name
Saga,
is.
right.
I'm like, dude, I genuinely couldn't give a shit. This
Right.
couldn't be for like, yeah, it sucks, dude. Apparently it was cheating. I don't know. Me, how does that affect my life at all? Like it doesn't. Like, yes, there should be integrity in sport. 100% agree. I don't think anybody disagrees. Well, obviously some people disagree, but like, yes, I think common sense tells you that that's a very common bar to live on. But like, what would me making a post angry about this guy, doing peptide? I don't even know what a peptide is. So like, what kind of argument can I make if I'm not even educated on the, subject? So yeah, I don't think that there's a time or space where we need everyone's opinion. It's kind of like what I said to you before we hopped on here when we were talking about doing podcasts. I'm like, I don't think people need to hear more of my opinions. I think that we get plenty of that already. And like at some point I just need to shut up and like, I'll watch from the sidelines because I am not educated on nearly enough things to actually like cause a controversy or like start a real issue or do anything like that.
Right. Yeah. I think that's where I eventually landed on it myself, was just that, it became a topic on people's radar that then they, felt like they were obligated to opine on, or, wanted to defend, one side or the other. And it just, it was a wildfire that kind of grew larger than it ever should have been. And unfortunately, I think it for people that engaged with it, it was a net negative kind of for them until it purged itself out of the algorithm feed and we moved on to
Yeah.
something different.
Also, at the end of the day, man, there's so many bigger issues. The things that people get mad at me for, I'm like, listen, you could be mad at me for 5 minutes, but like, go like worry about like the fact that it's like the Amazon rainforest on the East Coast right now with 100% humidity and 95 degrees. That's the real, like, we have real issues to be worried about, and you're on the internet complaining about the fact that some guy took peptides that like looks like he took peptides, whatever that is. Like, sure. Like,
Right.
just don't give this too much thought. There's so much bigger shit happening.
Gotcha. But to my point though, I would imagine that, like you said, it's a much smaller uh
Yeah.
visible thing that exists in real life, right? Like you engage way more than I do at the community level. And so I was hopeful to think that, like, yeah, your experience, over the course of the last couple of years, well, things socially have the hot spots. Like, it seems like they never really present themselves to the same degree in person. Like people actually are there just to like celebrate everyone trying to do something extraordinarily difficult.
Yeah, no, 100%. And in person, it's always a good experience.
Yeah.
I genuinely couldn't tell you one. I've never had a single negative experience once. And that's that's like many events in now. So, especially like when you're doing something that is like focused on like for me like let's all run shirtless for the first time together, stuff like that. Like, how could you show up to that negatively? We're
Right.
just trying to empower people. I think at the end of the day, empowerment's like so important to what we're doing for bringing people into our space at the end of the day. Cause like running is so intimidating. And like when you're just learning how to get into this sport, where do you even begin? How do you do it? Why am I so slow? But like if you empower those people who feel these things and give them answers to their questions, they're going to stay for a lifelong of movement. And that's the beautiful part of all this.
Right. That's awesome, man. I think that's a great place to leave it. I would love to have you on, again. I think there's plenty of things that I wanted to hit at that we didn't have time for today. But yeah, I mean, Herm, for people who weren't familiar with you before, but now really appreciate everything that you've contributed to this conversation. Where can they follow you, man? Let them know where to
Yeah.
find you on socials and where you pop up at next.
I'm on Instagram and TikTok at Herm Runs. And then yeah, I'll be running New York this year. So I'll do a marathon in the fall, and then I think I'm gonna go pretty long in the spring. But either I might run Desert Peak back. I kind of want revenge on Mount Lemon. I really want to take that time back and I just want to do it better. That's the thing that comes out of ultras. It's like I know I can do that better. I feel the same way about JFK 50. I'm like I know I can do it better than I did it that day. And that course I need a little bit of time before I go back to. But Desert Peak, I'm like I think I might have to do this again. So we'll see. Yeah, I'm very excited, and in between there I'm sure there'll be some races.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate the time. Appreciate you hopping on. Appreciate the time we spent together at Desert Peak. And I think I might be back out there. So we'll cross paths, I'm sure, down the road, man.
Hell yeah. Appreciate you, Wolfie.
All right, man. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.